The fluorescent lights of the hospital chapel flickered above me as I knelt before the small memorial placard bearing my late husband's name. I had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times during my 10 years in prison, imagining what I would say to David, how I would finally find peace. But nothing could have prepared me for what the elderly chaplain was about to tell me. Mrs. Martinez. His voice was gentle but uncertain. Your daughter was here yesterday. She left something for you. My hands froze mid-prayer. I turned. Slowly, my knees creaking as I stood. I'm sorry, Father, but there must be some mistake. I don't have a daughter. The chaplain's weathered face creased with confusion. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a sealed envelope. She said her name was Sarah. Sarah Martinez. She knew things about you, about your husband. She seemed quite desperate to find you. I took the envelope with trembling fingers. The handwriting on the front made my blood run cold. It was David's handwriting. Identical to the love notes he used to leave on my pillow, to the grocery lists stuck to our fridge, to the suicide note the police found next to his body 12 years ago. But David was dead. I had been convicted of embezzling $180,000 from Street Catherine's hospital, where I worked as a nurse, money that supposedly drove my husband to take his own life. The prosecution painted me as a monster who destroyed her family for greed. And I had just spent 10 years paying for it. Let me back up. Before I continue the story, please subscribe to the channel and tell me first, where did you hear this from? Write it in the comments, because what happens next most people won't believe. Name. Zelina Martinez, and I'm 62 years old, though I know I look older. Prison ages you in ways that have nothing to do with time. When I walked out of Oakdale Correctional Facility 6 weeks ago, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me in the processing sense bathroom mirror. The vibrant nurse who loved hiking and gardening had been replaced by someone with gray-streaked hair, permanent worry lines, and eyes that had seen too much. They gave me $50,000 when I was released. It sounds like a lot. Doesn't it? Everyone thinks so. The other inmates were jealous. My court-appointed lawyer called it generous. But let me break down where that money went, because this is important. First, $22,000 went straight to my lawyer for his appeal work over the final 3 years of my sentence. Even though I lost, he still got paid. Another $8,000 covered the debts I owed before prison, the utilities and mortgage payments I couldn't make after my arrest, all with accumulated interest. I paid $3,500 for the first month's rent and deposit. On a tiny studio apartment in a neighborhood where I didn't need to explain my background to every curious neighbor. I bought a used car for $4,200, practical clothes for $800, and put aside $2,500 for food and basic expenses until I could find work, which is nearly impossible at my age, with a felony record. That left me with $9,000 in my savings account. $9,000 to rebuild a life that had been completely destroyed. $9,000 between me and homelessness if I couldn't find a job soon. But money wasn't why I came to Street Catherine's hospital that gray December morning. I came for closure. I came to stand in the chapel where David's memorial service was held, where our friends and colleagues had gathered to mourn him. While I sat in a jail cell awaiting trial, I came to finally say goodbye and to somehow, impossibly forgive myself for crimes I didn't commit. Now I stood in that same chapel, staring at an envelope written in a dead man's handwriting. When exactly was she? Here, I asked Father Thomas, my voice barely above a whisper. Yesterday afternoon around 3:00, she waited for nearly 2 hours, hoping you'd come. She seemed to know you'd visit the chapel eventually. He paused, studying my face. Mrs. Martinez, are you all right? You look pale. Should I call someone? No, I'm fine. The lie came automatically. I wasn't fine. My heart was hammering so hard I could feel it in my throat. Did she say anything else? What did she look like? Young woman. Maybe late 20s, dark hair about this tall. He gestured to his shoulder. She had your eyes, if you don't mind me saying, same green color. She seemed nervous, kept looking over her shoulder like she was afraid someone might see her here. My eyes are hazel, not green, but I didn't correct him. I was too focused on the envelope, turning it over in my hands like it might explode. Thank you, Father. I need some time alone. If that's okay. He nodded and quietly left the chapel, his footsteps echoing in the empty space. I waited until I heard the door click shut before I tore open the envelope. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a photograph. The photo showed a young woman, maybe 28 or 29, with long dark hair and delicate features. She was standing in front of a house I didn't recognize, smiling at the camera. On the back, someone had written, "Your daughter Sarah, taken 3 months ago." My hands shook as I unfolded the letter. The handwriting was definitely David's, that same right. Slanting script with the distinctive way he crossed his T's. "Alina," it began. "If you're reading this, then you've finally been released. And Sarah has found the courage to reach out. I don't know how to begin this letter. I've started it 100 times over the past 12 years. And every time the words feel inadequate for what I need to say. I'm alive. I know what you must be thinking. I know the rage and confusion and betrayal you must feel. You have every right to hate me. I destroyed your life. I took everything from you, and the worst part is I did it deliberately. Sarah is my daughter. I had an affair 15 years ago with a woman named Patricia Cowlson, one of the hospital administrators. When Patricia got pregnant, I panicked. I loved you, Alina, I truly did, but I was a coward. And I convinced Patricia to keep Sarah a secret. I paid child support under the table, made up excuses for missing money, lived a double life. When the hospital started investigating the missing funds, I knew they'd discover my payments to Patricia. They'd see the cash withdrawals, the wire transfers to her account. It would all come out. My affair, my secret daughter, everything. So I made a choice. A horrible, unforgivable choice. I stole the money from the hospital pharmacy fund, the full $180,000. I made it look like you did it because you had pharmacy access, because you were trusted. Then I staged my death and ran. Patricia helped me. She falsified medical records, cremation papers. She had the connections to make it work. We've been living in Colorado for the past 12 years. Sarah grew up thinking I was a widower, that her mother and I had a normal relationship. But 3 months ago, she found letters I'd hidden, letters you'd written to me in the early years of our marriage. She confronted me, demanded the truth. I told her everything, and she was horrified by what I'd done. She wants to help you, Alina. She wants to make this right. The $180,000 is still there, most of it. I invested it and it's grown. Patricia recently died from cancer. And before she passed, she gave Sarah her confession, a full written statement admitting what we did with copies of the falsified documents. Sarah has everything you need to prove your innocence. She's waiting for you to contact her. Her number is at the bottom of this page. I know I can never make this right. I know there's no forgiveness possible for what I've done to you. 10 years of your life gone. Your career, your reputation, your freedom, all sacrificed for my cowardice. I'm dying now, too. Lung cancer, stage 4. The doctors give me 6 months at most. Perhaps there's some justice in that. Sarah wants to know you, not because I asked her to, but because she feels she owes you the truth. She's a good person, Alina. Better than I ever was, better than I deserved. I'm so sorry for everything. David, I read the letter 3 times. Then I read it again. My mind couldn't process what I was seeing. David was alive. He had been alive this whole time while I rotted in prison. While I missed my mother's funeral because they denied my request to attend. While I was assaulted by another inmate and spent 3 weeks in the medical ward. While I celebrated 10 birthdays alone in a cell wondering if I'd die before I was ever free again. The rage came first, hot and blinding. I wanted to scream. I wanted to find David and make him suffer the way I had suffered. But then the rage gave way to something else, something colder and more focused. He was dying. He'd be dead. Soon, probably before I could even confront him. But Sarah was alive. Sarah had evidence. Sarah could help me get justice. My hands still shaking, I pulled out the cheap flip phone I bought with my release money and dialed the number at the bottom of the letter. She answered on the second ring. "Hello." Her voice was soft, uncertain. "Is this Sarah?" A sharp intake of breath. "Alina, Mrs. Martinez. You left me a letter." I kept my voice steady, though my whole body was trembling. "Your father's letter. I need you to tell me if it's true." Every word. Her voice cracked. "Mrs. Martinez, I am so sorry. I didn't know. All these years, I didn't know. He told me you were dead, that you died before I was born. I only found out 3 months ago when I was helping him pack up our old house. I found your letters and I found documents, bank statements. I confronted him and he finally admitted everything. Where is he now? In hospice care in Boulder. He barely conscious most days. The cancer spread to his brain last month." She paused. "I know this doesn't fix anything, but I have my mother's confession. I have bank records showing where the money went. I have the falsified cremation documents with her signature. I have everything the police would need to reopen your case. Why are you helping me? He's your father." Her laugh was bitter. "He's a stranger who destroyed an innocent woman's life to save himself. He let you go to prison while he played house with me and my mother in Colorado. No, Mrs. Martinez. He's not my father. A father doesn't do what he did. We met 2 days later at a coffee shop in Boulder. I took the bus, spending 6 hours on uncomfortable seats with my stomach in knots. Sarah was waiting in a corner booth when I arrived, and when our eyes met, I understood why Father Thomas thought she had my eyes. She didn't, but there was something in her face, a determination and sadness that I recognized from my own mirror. She stood as I approached, and for a moment we just stared at each other. Then, unexpectedly, she started to cry. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." I didn't hug her. I couldn't, not yet. But I sat down across from her and said, "Show me what you have." She did. Over the next 3 hours, Sarah laid out everything. Bank statements showing David's wire transfers to Patricia Carlson's account over 15 years. Emails between David and Patricia planning his death. The falsified cremation certificate with Patricia's signature as the authorizing hospital administrator, her mother's written confession, witnessed and notarized just 2 weeks before she died, and most damning of all, a safety deposit box key that led to an account containing $267,000, the original $180,000 plus 12 years of investment returns. "I already contacted a lawyer," Sarah said. "One of the best criminal defense attorneys in Colorado. He thinks your case is winnable. With all this evidence, he says the state will have to vacate your conviction. You could sue for wrongful imprisonment," he mentioned. Numbers in the millions. I sat back overwhelmed. "Why are you doing this, really?" Sarah looked down at her hands. "Because I'm a nurse, too. I work at Boulder General, and every day I put on my scrubs and help people. I think about you. You were a nurse for 20 years. You dedicated your life to helping people. And my father took that away from you. He stole your career, your freedom, your life. I can't give you back those 10 years, but I can give you back your future. I can make sure everyone knows." The truth, we filed the motion to vacate my conviction 3 weeks later. The evidence was overwhelming. David's letter, Patricia's confession, the bank records, the falsified documents, it all pointed to one unavoidable conclusion. I had been framed for a crime I didn't commit by my husband and his mistress. The district attorney's office tried to fight it at first. No prosecutor wants to admit they put an innocent woman in prison for a decade, but Sarah's lawyer was relentless. He went to the media. Local news stations picked up the story. Innocent nurse imprisoned while husband faked. Death and fled became a headline that spread across Colorado and beyond. Public pressure mounted. The hospital where I'd worked issued a statement expressing shock and offering their full cooperation with the investigation. Former colleagues came forward testifying that I'd always been trustworthy, that they'd never believed I was capable of theft. 4 months after I walked out of prison, I walked into a courtroom and heard a judge say the words I dreamed about for 10 years. "The conviction is hereby vacated. Mrs. Martinez, you are free, and the record will reflect your innocence." I didn't cry. I'd cried enough in prison. Instead, I stood there feeling a weight I'd carried for so long finally lift from my shoulders. But the story didn't end there. David died 2 weeks before my conviction was vacated. Part of me wished he'd lived long enough to see it, to know that his plan had ultimately failed, but another part of me was glad he was gone. I didn't want to see him again. I didn't want to hear his apologies or his justifications. I just wanted to move forward. The wrongful imprisonment lawsuit took another 8 months. Sarah testified, providing all the evidence she'd gathered. The state ultimately settled for $1.02 $2 million. After lawyer fees and taxes, I received $780,000. It's strange having money after having nothing for so long. I paid off every debt. I bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood. I donated $50,000 to organizations that help exonerated prisoners rebuild their lives. And I went back to school to update my nursing credentials. The hardest part was deciding what to do about Sarah. She called me every week during the legal proceedings, updating me on developments, offering support. After the settlement, she asked if we could have dinner. We met at a restaurant in Boulder, and for the first time since this all began, we didn't talk about David or the case or the past. We talked about nursing, about our favorite hiking trails, about books we loved and movies we hated. And somewhere during that dinner, I realized that Sarah was trying to build a bridge between us. Not because of guilt or obligation, but because she genuinely wanted to know me. "I know I can't be your daughter," she said as we finished dessert. "You didn't raise me, We don't have that history. But maybe if you're willing, we could be friends, or at least people who check in on each other sometimes. I thought about it. I thought about the anger I'd felt when I first learned the truth, the rage at David and Patricia, and the injustice of it all. But I also thought about how Sarah had risked her relationship with her dying father to do the right thing, how she'd spent months gathering evidence and fighting for my freedom, how she'd never asked for anything in return. I'd like that. I said finally. I'd like to try. Today, 2 years after my release, I'm 64 years old. I work part-time at a community health clinic helping underserved patients who remind me why I became a nurse in the first place. Sarah and I have dinner once a month. We're not mother and daughter. We're not quite friends, but we're something. Two women connected by tragedy who chose to build something new from the wreckage. Sometimes I think about the 10 years I lost, the birthdays and holidays and ordinary moments that were stolen from me. I think about the woman I was before. All this, the Alina who trusted people and believed in justice and thought the world was fundamentally fair. That woman is gone. Prison killed her, but in her place is someone stronger, someone who survived hell and came out the other side, someone who knows that justice doesn't always come easy, but it can come. Someone who learned that family isn't always about blood. It's about who shows up when everything falls apart. I still visit Street Catherine's hospital chapel sometimes. Not to mourn anymore, but to remember, to remind myself how far I've come. And sometimes when the light hits the stained glass windows just right, I feel something close to peace. The chaplain, Father Thomas, always smiles when he sees me now. Back again, Mrs. Martinez, just checking in. Father, I tell him, making sure I'm still here, still free. You're more than free, he said to me last week. You're finally at peace. I thought about that as I drove home to my small house with the garden I'm slowly bringing back to life. Peace. Maybe he's right. Maybe after everything, after the injustice and the pain and the slow, hard work of rebuilding, I've finally found something close to peace. And if a frightened woman with my same story ever walks into that chapel someday, looking for answers, looking for hope, I want her to know this. The truth matters. Justice is possible. And sometimes the people you least expect will be the ones who save you. Sometimes they'll even have your late husbands. If you enjoyed the story, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe for more story.